You got your Maga Mac guys here for a Thursday St. Patty's Day edition of Birds 365. McMullen and McDonald going to chop it up with you for the next 2 hours. It's a typical St. Patrick's Day for me because things are going in several different directions. When we get ready to do Birds 365 here, John and I hop on just before the show's about to start. I just mentioned that this was a little bit of a late start for him. I got up at my usual 6:15, and I've been writing down notes and preparing for the last hour and a half. And then McMullen tells me 2 minutes before the show's supposed to start, "Oh, how he got his extension." I said, "Where the hell did you see that? I've been looking at Eagles stuff all morning." He said Kempsky just put it up within the last 2 or 3 minutes.
It was about an hour ago. I think.
Was it an hour ago? I was on Philly Voice.
Well, he put it on Twitter. I don't know if he has it up on the site yet, but. And he might, but I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it was always expected. There were whispers, and Jimmy was able to lock it down, and good for him. Good job by Jimmy Kempsky. Really back at the combine, people were telling me, "Yeah, don't worry about it." And they gave him a 3-year extension, which aligns with Nick Cirianne. He got a 4-year deal. So that was always, you remember when we talked about it when it first came up, I said, typically you align it with the head coach. And there was never going to be any concern, as there was never going to be a lame duck season where Harry Roseman was GMing for his job, if that's even a thing. People, say that. But,
here's my. I'm sorry to interrupt, but maybe I'm just not a math whiz. Sirianne got a 4-year deal,
and Howie had 1 year left from Doug,
right?
From the original extension, from not his, but he's been here for a long time. And now he gets a 3-year deal. So Nick's got 3 years left on his deal. Howie's got 3 years left on his deal. So now they align, and they're together, which is the way you should do it. The only question for the Howie Roseman haters, this is the only GM in history that's not his history, but the only current GM, I'd have to go back a very long time, that has hired 3 different head coaches.
Yeah.
So people kind of say, you typically don't have this kind of shelf life in that job in the NFL. We always talk about shelf life and why is this guy? Look, I'm on record. I've gotten killed for it. This is a very good general manager. Very good. I've called him top 5. I got excoriated for that on social media, as you can imagine. At worst, he's top 10. At worst, if you want to argue. There's a lot of recency bias, and guys who've had a good season, you'll say he's better. But this guy's been around a long time. And I already see it with the young GMs who get hired. Man, there's a lot of growing pains. They make a lot of mistakes from a technical standpoint. And I get the biggest thing from a fan perspective is always going to be player evaluation. And understandably so. I get it. I mean, that's the biggest part of the job. But it's still only a small part of a big job. And, the cap stuff is a perfect example. I mean, guys make a lot of cap mistakes. And there are certain guys, and Mickey Loomis is another one like this. We go through this every year, Jody, where people say, because the Saints have been in that all-in sort of mind frame for a very long time. At the end of Drew Brees' career, for a decade, and Sean Payton, they tried to win every year. So there was a lot of immediacy trying to get players to win for that particular year. And that hurts you on the cap, and you got to push things around. You got to manipulate things. And everybody says, well, the Saints can't do anything. The Saints can't do anything. Oh, they're in on Deshaun Watson, and they can do anything because their GM is so savvy. That's kind of the Eagles as well. They can do anything, and they proved it last year with Carson Wentz. And I'm in that camp. I said, you can't take on that dead money. You can't take on that cap hit. I take that, I'll raise my hand. I said, they can't do that. Oh, they did it, and they made the playoffs. I mean, that's a big part of this job. And I know people don't really care about it, and I get that part of it, but he's a very good general manager. I get the frustration of people, but he's a very good general manager. And if you were to fire him and bring in a new general manager, I'll just say this: you'd have a lot of growing pains. A lot of growing pains.
Cap management is an underrated skill of a general manager. You and I see that exactly the same. But again, it's St. Patrick's Day, and I promise you, I have not had a green beer yet. I may have several after this show is over and done with, but I have not. But I'm struggling with math here this morning. Howie Roseman was on the last year of his contract, starting with the new year today, yesterday. As a matter of fact, they had a year to go. If he signed the 3-year extension, that means he's under contract for 4 more years. Cirianne is under contract for 3 more years. And you just said you like to keep those 2 guys aligned, but my math tells me how he's extended a year further. When we say 3-year extension, does that mean we're not counting this year, which he was already under contract for? Is it actually
I don't have the details. Jimmy reported it was a 3-year extension. Typically you want to align head coaches and general managers. Maybe Nick got a 5-year deal. My guess is they're aligned. Now, if they're under contract through 2024, 2025, I'm just texting people now. My guess is they're aligned. So typically that's what you do. I don't see why the Eagles would, give Howie an extra year than Nick. So my guess, and it's just a guess, is that they're aligned. So whether that's through 2024 through 2025, that's my guess, is that they're on the same time frame.
Gotcha, but we don't know for sure, is what you're saying. Fair enough. I just try to do my own math here, and it wasn't exactly adding up. All right. So Howie Roseman is in front of his desk, cracking down as we speak, trying to figure out more moves for the Eagles to make. It became official yesterday that Hassan Riddick is a Philadelphia Eagles 3-year, $45 million deal was signed, sealed, and delivered. His former running mate in Arizona, Chandler Jones, signed yesterday for more money, 3 years, 51. So certainly more than Hassan got at 3 and 45. Who do you think got the better deal, Hassan Riddick and or Chandler Jones?
Well, you got to see the mechanics of the deal, and when they get filed, same thing. But average annual value, and again, these are all contracts put out by agents, and they're going to spin them to be the best possible, for their particular client. My guess is Chandler got the better deal because of his name and there's a lot of things that go into it, and he was expected to be the number 1 guy, and Von Miller got a deal that it's not going to look nearly as good when the truth of that contract comes out. But I got to tell you, Jody, I didn't see Von Miller going to Buffalo. That was a big surprise to me, and it kind of tells you Buffalo's going all in. But it's kind of hard to speculate on the surface. I assume he got the best deal, Chandler Jones, from a 2-year perspective, which is kind of all that matters in free agency, which is understandable. And I think, we just talked about it with Howie at the beginning of the show. I think when the Reddick numbers are filed, and that should be very soon, and they might be, I got to look at that as well. People are going to be very happy with that deal. People are going to be very happy with that deal because if it was spun as 3 years, 45, it's going to look much better on paper for the Eagles.
Well, they usually do. Your point on the early reporting of these usually come from agents who are going to make it look as good as possible for the player is very much on point. That's the way the NFL has been running for years. The agents release the numbers first, and then you get them from the teams afterward. You go, Oh, okay. I see what's actually embedded in these
Exactly.
numbers here. So we got,
And that's everybody. That's 99% of contracts, by the way, not just Hassan Riddick, but it's kind of what I said with Howie. Howie's usually a little bit better than other people. And there are people in the conversation. Mickey Loomis is one of them. But he's generally at the top of that list. And you have to give Jake Rosenberg a lot of credit as well. I'll give him a shout out.
Fair enough. I'm very interested to see those numbers because, you and I debated before free agency kicked in. You said you thought that Chandler Jones would be a better signing for the Eagles. I said Hassan Riddick because he's younger, plain and simple. That's the difference. Is Chandler Jones a more specific defensive end, not someone that you're going to have to get creative with and find different ways to use and make him a productive player in your defense? Yeah, of course he is, but I'll lean on the side of youth that Hassan Riddick's certainly already where he is and is less likely to have a drop-off in production in Chandler Jones. You might see a drop-off in Jones this upcoming year with Vegas. Vegas surely hopes that's not the case since they just signed him, but at age 32, at some point, even the best of the best pass rushers start to drop off, and I think Chandler Jones is right on the precipice of that. And the one thing I kind of laughed at when I was reading the story on the signing of Jones to Vegas, and immediately thereafter, the Raiders traded Yannick Ngakoue to the Indianapolis Colts. J-Mac, you and I weren't partners. I might have been having you on my show at the time when Yannick Ngakoue was the most desired player in Philadelphia. Everybody and his brother wanted the Eagles to trade for Yannick Ngakoue when he was a member of the Jacksonville Jaguars, which is now a couple of years ago. What has Yannick Ngakoue done since he left Jacksonville? Next to nothing would be my answer.
Well, one, I got to defend myself. Rob Motti was on the show. I said Rob said it first, and then I said, I agreed with him. There were these strange whispers at the end of free agency that the Eagles might try to make a big splash with Chandler Jones. I said he doesn't seem like an Eagles type signing for me because of his age, 32. But you never know with these splashy things. And if they could get some kind of deal, you never say never, some kind of discount. But there were these weird whisperings of the Eagles and Chandler Jones. They always go. That's sort of the Eagles mentality. You want to go for that young player off his rookie deal, typically. And when you don't, you typically want a 1-year short-term deal, and Chandler Jones was always going to get more than that. So I just wanted to clear up the Chandler Jones part of the equation. As far as Yannick Ngakoue, look, the guy, this is one of my concerns. One, and I'm not trying because I think Hassan Riddick is a better player than Yannick Ngakoue. He can rush the passer. I'm talking about Yannick Ngakoue. Can't do anything else. I mean, can't do anything else. He might be one of 2 or 3 worst run support defensive ends in the NFL. And what do I always say about March, Jody? Nobody gives a bleep about the run game in March from an offensive perspective or a defensive perspective. And I go, oh, let's get Ngakoue. It's been 4 teams and 4. I can't even keep up with it. But Minnesota, Rick Spielman, part of his sort of downfall, he's another great cap guy, but sort of his downfall was when players would get injured, he would panic. We know it best in Philadelphia with Sam Bradford. So I think that year it was Danielle Hunter was out with his neck injury, and he panicked and he traded for Yannick Ngakoue. He could rush the passer, terrible at everything else. So then they trade him to Baltimore. Now, Baltimore's a really good organization. Typically, they make a lot of good decisions. They figure out very quickly he can rush the passer, can't do anything else. Then he goes out to Las Vegas. The first couple games, people are raving about this guy because he's opposite Max Crosby. They got these 2 great pass rushers. And all of a sudden, the season wears on, and they realize, oh, this guy's a liability. and now he's in Indianapolis. He can't. People don't care about the running game until they see it on the field, and they go, "This guy's a stinking liability." And Indianapolis, which has a reputation, even though they traded for Carson Wentz, they have a reputation to be a smart organization, and they're going to find out the same thing, Jody. People are in love with pass rushers. Same with quarterbacks. It's great when guys can do certain things, but if you're not well-rounded, it's going to show up eventually.
One-trick pony. That's what Yannick Ngakoue was. And as everyone was clamoring for his services here in Philadelphia, I was a guy who continued to say, thank you, no. Not only am I not going to give up what is being reported on his price tag to be for Jacksonville. I don't want the guy, period. I, like you, noticed and knew that he was absolutely a liability with run defense. And even though I'm a sack guy, you're a guy who will be okay with pressures. If you get your fair number of sacks, you get a whole bunch of pressures, you're okay with Johnny Mac. No, I need sacks. I need guys to finish. That's
he can finish. He can. The one thing Yannick, he's a perfect example of a big sack guy who's, he's going to be a big sack guy, but he's going to be a liability. It's the best way. Because I'm not going to say he doesn't offer some things, because not everybody can rush the passer like he can. And it's very intoxicating. But if you can't do anything else, I mean, it's gonna hurt eventually. And it's hurt in so many different cities now. How many did I name? I can't even.
He went through the fast four. He's on his fourth team in less than 4 years.
This is 5. So it's Jacksonville, Minnesota, Baltimore, Las Vegas,
and Indy will be his 5th team, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're a good player, you're not bouncing around to that many teams. Same thing I say with Carson Wentz. I mean, if you're good, you're not bouncing around to 3 teams in 3 years. I mean, bottom line.
Now, I kind of predicted that Ngakoue's sacks were going to drop off, and they have done just that. So even though he was a guy who could get home in Jacksonville, like I said, it's been 3 stops, and he hasn't put up top flight sack numbers in any of the other ones, and I don't expect him to do it in Indianapolis either. We shall see. So yes, yesterday was the official day that Hassan Riddick became a Philadelphia Eagle, but no other outside entries to the world of Philadelphia football. Kind of a slow day. Howie Roseman got nothing done, but not that many teams around the league did. We mentioned Chandler Jones going to the Raiders was certainly the biggest play. No other really major signings, just some more drama in the Deshaun Watson conversation as a 4th team was added. He actually took it on the road, went home to Atlanta. The Falcons in the mix. And I'll continue to ask it. And it's just me being an observer from outside. I'm not suggesting that what are the Eagles doing? How are the Eagles screwing this up? They have to get Deshaun Watson. Jalen Hurts isn't good enough. No, none of that is in play here. My only question is, why no Eagles? Why aren't they at least in this conversation? Are you telling me that they can't merit a We talked all season, John, after the Eagles had accumulated all their draft capital to be a player in something like this. And the Atlanta Falcons are getting a meeting, and the Cleveland Browns are getting a meeting. Is it just the fact that Deshaun Watson not only said, yeah, I'd prefer not to go to Philadelphia, but I'm not going to Philadelphia? The Eagles aren't good enough to take on my services. That's the only thing that's bothering me. If they get him, they get him. If they don't, they don't. I'll be okay with it either way. I'll go back to war with Jalen Hurts. But the fact that other teams, if he's meeting with a top flight team that's got a chance to go to the Super Bowl next year, all right, I'll understand that. Okay, that's his preference. But he's meeting with all these teams that aren't contenders, aren't anywhere near on the level of the Eagles as of right now. And the Eagles can't even get a meeting. Yeah, I want to know the answer as to why. I'm sorry.
And maybe you'll get it. I have, I think, somewhat of an answer, but I can't say it. I'll tell it to you off the air. And then I'll just say that It has nothing to do with roster construction or players or anything like that. Well, it does have to do with a player, but it doesn't have to do with playoff implications or anything of that nature, which is kind of what I speculated. There's always other stuff. Now I think he wants to play in the South. He's an Atlanta kid. He's a Georgia kid. Not Atlanta, but Gainesville, Georgia. So that kind of explains the Falcons a little bit. And New Orleans, that's a place a lot of people want to be in, just because it's a fun, and especially younger people, it's fun, it's a cool city, blah, blah, blah. We know Miami and the original. So I think he wants to be in the South. But I do think, and I've said that pretty consistently, it's got nothing to do with him looking at film and saying, "Oh, the Eagles have terrible players." It's got nothing to do with that. Never believed that for a second. And this is a weird and wild story. This is a weird story. You got people insisting that Deshaun Watson is coming to Philadelphia. I shut it down yesterday on Twitter. I shut it down. I said, look, this is either the best example of discipline subterfuge in NFL history, or if Howie's going to pop up like whack-a-mole, or Deshaun's going to and say, "Gotcha." These teams are meeting with Deshaun Watson, with owners and head coaches and the biggest profile GMs and the biggest profile people in the organizations, 4 different teams. They've given trade proposals. If the Eagles have been able to keep this quiet, I will be the first. I told everybody, you can freeze and cold take me, send the tweet off, do whatever you want to do, because this will be the greatest subterfuge in NFL history if the Eagles are in on Deshaun Watson. That's how I'm framing it at this point.
I see what you're saying. And again, let me just get my position out there. If they don't get Deshaun Watson, I'm not pitching a fit. I'm not going. Howie Roseman blew this. Deshaun Watson's an idiot for not coming. All I want to know is why. I want an explanation, because there's a narrative to be driven that would make the Eagles a major contender for a guy like Deshaun Watson. And as you just correctly point out, they're not even in the picture. They're one of the other teams in the NFL have no use for Deshaun Watson. Guess what? The Green Bay Packers aren't getting a meeting with Deshaun Watson either. Oh, I can understand why not. They kind of got this Rodgers guy that they just gave $50 million plus to per year. So of course they're out. The Eagles are out, and they've got Jalen Hurts. I just want some answers. I'm not complaining about it. I'm not saying, oh my God, Howie Roseman is screwing this up. Oh my God, Deshaun Watson is screwing us by not even looking at it. All I want is some answers.
I'm going to text you a potential answer. Okay. You just can't talk about it yet.
Right, this is to be determined. Okay, I got your drift.
And we got to get to Joe. So I'll text you that during the break, and we'll bring our buddy Joe Santoliquito on from Philly Boys and Bleeding Green Nation. It's Bleeding Green Nation Day. We're going to have BLG as well.
So Joe Santoliquito of Philly Boys and Bleeding Green Nation is next. Our buddy BLG, Bernally Gouton, a little bit later. We'll be here for another hour and change on Birds 365.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass. Free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that. Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. 1 free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
John McMullen, John McDonald, your Mega Mag Birds 365 guys here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. This is one of the few days of the year where I actually will break my own rule of not having an alcoholic beverage before noon. Don't know if I'm going to go there today or not. Still to be determined. But happy St. Patty's Day, everybody. We've got a good Irishman joining us here on the show.
What's up, guys?
Kind of tough to like Santoliquito into an Irishman, but we'll give it our best shot. How you been, Joe?
What's up, guys? How you doing?
Good to see you, Joe.
Good
to get you back on the show. It's that time of year for Joe Santoliquito, so you know it's the spring. Carson Wentz has got a new home, so I guess we're saying it's an annual trip. It's sort of like St. Patty's Day. We can put down a date on the calendar and say, "Oh, Carson's going to go to a new team." Quarterback 1, but for team number 3, a lot of validation for your original reporting.
Thanks.
Recently, now you and I have known about this for many years, but recently a couple players talked about, so now we can talk about it. I wouldn't say famous, but shoving match leading up to the Super Bowl with Darren Sproles, which people are surprised at. Because what kind of guy Darren Sproles is, but yeah, I mean, a lot of insecurity, a lot of personality as far as being an introvert versus extroverts with Carson Wentz. Just a lot of people taking his personality the wrong way versus Jalen Hurts, the Eagles' current quarterback, who sort of has that natural ability to draw people in. Is that sort of a fair assessment of the two sort of leadership styles?
I would say that. I would say that's absolutely correct. Yes. Yeah. Carson, again, I believe Carson has the he certainly has the cerebral intelligence to turn around and see things. Obviously I think we know by now. I don't know if he doesn't have the emotional intelligence right now. I think he's capable of doing it. We've seen him make overtures in that direction when he was at the tail end of his stay here in Philadelphia. I'm going to cringe by saying this, but I think maybe it's a big reason for it. If you remember the infamous dinner where he took all the guys out, and it may have had something to do with a little story on January 21st, 2019. He wanted to bond with these guys. And that was the thing too, guys, is that when I was gathering this stuff 3 years ago, people want to bond with him. They want to embrace him. They want to take him in. And here, the impression I've always gotten was that it was Wentz that was pushing back and just saying, hey, wait a second here. and that's on Wentz, and it seems as if it's always been on Wentz. He's had this. He's awkward in large situations, in large locker room situations. If you guys remember the number of times he was barely around, and then again, quarterbacks are barely around. Starting quarterbacks are barely around in NFL locker rooms. But I would go out to numerous social events with the guys and various charitable events and things of that nature, and you would see 80% of the guys, 90% of the guys, 99.9% of the guys, and the one guy that was invariably missing was Wentz. So this is his last stop motel. I would not be surprised if 2 years from now I see him playing in 2022 and 2023, but I wouldn't be surprised if after the age of 30 or maybe even, depending upon what happens next season, he just says, the hell with this. He's collected his money. He does have a Super Bowl ring. He is responsible for getting the Eagles that Super Bowl ring in 2017. Not solely responsible, obviously, but he is a major, major reason why they won the Super Bowl in 2017. And it's reached the point where, do I want to put myself through this grind again? His body, as we know, has a history of breaking down. So I will say this: it does add a whole lot of fun when the Eagles will be playing the Commanders. Commander Carson, I believe they're calling him, Washington.
Yeah, that was awkward. Poor Carson. Even the social media. I've said, look, if I have an agent, a big-time agent, Mike McCartney or somebody like that, I would tell Mike, I said, look, I'll sign. I'll take a few less shekels if I don't have to do this goofy social media stuff, because these guys come off like so awkward. I feel bad for him. Carson, remember when he signed his big extension here and him and Jeffrey Lurie did that awkward? That might be the most awkward video of all time with those two trying to look natural. I feel bad for those guys. And Carson had to go out there and talk about taking command. Taking command. What a terrible nickname that is. But
yeah. By the way, that will switch, and I think it'll switch very soon. It'll certainly switch in cities like Dallas, Philadelphia, and New York. They will soon be the Washington Commies.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Okay. Nobody thinks about these things.
We'll see how that politically goes. All right. Here's a question I have for you, Joe, when it comes to Carson Wentz, and I'm going to mix a couple of sports here. I'm a Doc Rivers fan. I've been long before he became the Sixers coach, and I thought they got an excellent coach when they got him. Sometimes he does things that make me scratch my head, and I'll call him on the carpet on the air. But I overall still think he's a dynamite coach. He just got voted one of the 15 greatest coaches in the history of the NBA. Enough said. But I was very critical of him in that I thought he enabled Ben Simmons, that he defended him at every single turn. He called Philadelphia fans and all the Philadelphia people, how can you not understand this man's a treasure? He's buried treasure up in Brooklyn, but I digress. But I thought that it was just major mishandling by Doc Rivers. Did the Eagles enable Carson Wentz?
My God, yeah. Yeah, and that was a big problem. I equate it to a spoiled child. And that's why, at least with the original story, that's why guys lurked in the shadows, we'll say, when it came to expressing themselves. And certainly, and I think John will attest to that too. I don't think anybody was like completely overt in coming out and saying things. And originally, again, if you guys remember, I got accused of, you're seeking out guys that don't like Wentz. Well, I didn't know anybody that didn't like Wentz. And again, I go back to how the whole thing started. Walking out after the Dallas game, after the Dallas loss on Sunday night at the Link in Philadelphia, and making what I thought was an innocuous comment that, hey, Mike Groh's really screwing this up. And the guy turned around and goes, Joe, it's not Groh. It's Wentz. He's doing this, and it's basically all the things that we know now. And that shocked me. And then when I went back, there again, I was the one that people came to. I wasn't lurking. I wasn't the one that was going out and, what can I dig up on this and what can I dig up on that? No, this happened all by happenstance. And in the beginning, at least, this was volunteered to me. And then it was up to me in getting out of my own thick-headed way, just like, there might be something here. And then finally, after getting knocked on the head a few times, yeah, that's when I turned around and started cranking my own engines up. But I remember going to Matt Mullen. I remember going to Evan Macy at the Philly Voice. I said, listen, some of these guys are talking here a little bit, and that's where that's where it started to begin. Again, I'd like to think, and I was hoping, how crazy this may sound, considering I'm supposed to be a Wentz hater. I am not. I'm not a hater of anyone. I was actually hoping he would do well in Indianapolis. I know someone there, a very, very, very prominent Colt, that if Wentz did well, this very, very prominent Colt would do well as well. And they still did well, but in the end, Carson did what Carson's been prone to do. And the Eagles have that crack at this guy 2 times a year, at least I think for the next 2 years. I don't know if he's going to play beyond that, but he. Again, the hope is that he gets out of his way. It's like a beautiful girl that has her quirks, and one boyfriend says to another, dude, watch yourself with her, and it still happens.
It's a good point. So now let's take it back in to Philadelphia, the NovaCare complex, that particular locker room, Joe, because you're writing for Bleeding Green Nation these days as well. I saw you put up a piece yesterday with her buddy Barrett Brooks.
Yeah.
Boy, this is an interesting disconnect because Barrett's got, basically Deshaun Watson in Philadelphia. He's not the only one. I got a text from another former player who thinks the Eagles are getting Deshaun Watson, and I shut this thing down last night. I'm like, this has been above board from everybody else's perspective and everybody else who's gotten a meeting. New Orleans, Atlanta, Carolina, Cleveland. Everybody's meeting with Deshaun Watson, from owners, the GMs, to head coaches. This is the greatest subterfuge of all time. I don't know if you heard me while you were in the green room, Joe, but I mean, if the Eagles are in on this is amazing. I've never seen anything like it. If they've been able to keep it at this quiet, I'd be impressed.
I give it credit on two reasons. One, we all know Barrett. We all know how much of a stand-up guy Barrett is. We know how well-connected Barrett is. So it comes from Barrett, whose word is gold with me, like the two of yous. So it comes from Barrett. And secondly, so that lends legitimacy to it. And secondly, I like to say Howie is the king of Shadow Nation. Howie is the king. He's the guy lurking in the woods. He's the guy turning around behind the pillar. Oh, I see things, And that's where I turn around and I'm thinking, it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't really shock me. It wouldn't blow me off my doors where I'm falling off my chair if I hear out of the blue that the Eagles have signed Deshaun Watson. Because if you remember, I believe the Eagles were not exactly in the Michael Vick category either. The Eagles.
No, but that was different from this perspective, dude. This has been so very public from everybody else's standpoint because that's the way Deshaun and his agent have wanted it. And, people have had, and by the way, Houston as well is in that conversation as well, because they wanted people to basically give their trade proposals. In other words, give us your trade proposal, and then we'll approve our side of the meeting, and then we'll see if Deshaun wants to meet with you because of the no trade clause. So everything's been so public, whereas Mike, there weren't this wasn't this grandiose, at the time Mike was coming out of federal prison. He was obviously a tremendously talented player, but he wasn't a 26-year-old at the top of his game, at the height of his career, who's arguably a top 5 quarterback in the world. A little bit different from that perspective. But I will say to your point, and I'll add this for Jody, because I have been able to confirm how he is signed through 2025. So is Nick. So they are aligned. Why are people complaining about Howie Roseman? There's going to be a group of people complaining. If he's this good as his job, why aren't the Eagles extending him? Is that a problem?
I think there's some proof here that still has to take place. Harry Roseman, uh, he did the right things. He pushed the right buttons. That 2017 Super Bowl ring does have some longevity, and you said you put it on to is it 2027? So he gets it set.
2025.
I'm sorry, 2025. So he bought himself an 8-year window with that, certainly. Uh, and again, he does have a habit of coming out of the blue. I don't think many thought the Eagles were players in the Hassan Riddick situation, and he turned around and pulled that off. So I give Howie a lot of credit when it comes to, again, lurking in the woodwork, sneaking behind the pillars, and coming up with things that no one else expects. And again, John, you're completely correct in terms of as you look at the whole context of things when it comes to that Vic situation. But he did come out of the blue with that.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
And that I just put that nugget out there as proof that he is king of the shadow kingdom. He does have a very good habit of being the lurker, the guy that turns around and says, "Oh, who's that silhouette in the distance?" Well, they don't know. It's Howie Roseman.
All right. Well, then, if Deshaun Watson's out of play, we'll just put him to the side. And I still have my questions, but there's nothing we can do about it right now. Who is he lurking on? If it's not Deshaun Watson, what other lurking? What other pillar is Howie behind? And he's going to pop out from behind and get something done here, Santoliquito, because they could still use a veteran quarterback, cornerback. They can still use a veteran safety. They can surely use a veteran wide receiver. Guys have come off the board. None of those positions are barren yet. There is still some available veteran guys, but the top of the top might have come off, and the Eagles might not have been players in that neighborhood anywhere. Who else is he lurking on to upgrade this team?
Well, I think right now a lot of their apples, we'll say, have been put in the Deshaun Watson basket, or the basket of what can we do to improve at quarterback. They do have that hammer of 3 first-round draft picks.
So you're still believing they're going to get involved in this, huh?
Oh, I think they are involved in it. I don't know how deeply they're involved in it, but I still will maintain that they're involved in this. And I think again, it wouldn't shock me if it happens. So they have their draft board set. They have those whoever 3 picks they're taking a look at. I think we all agree what areas they should target. But I still believe that there is interest. I can't weigh the interest. I don't know the interest. It's not been fed back to me as the level of interest, but there's still an interest in Deshaun Watson. And when you look at Howie, you look at his track record. Well, he won with a franchise type quarterback with Donovan McNabb. They got to the Super Bowl again in 2017 with what they thought was their franchise type quarterback in Carson Wentz, and Nick Foles came in and did his thing. He's had this thing with nailing that down, getting that position down, and then we'll build around that. I kind of feel bad for Jalen Hurts, because I think he has to be smart enough to realize, well, they think I'm good, but they just don't think I'm good enough. And Jalen has to look at himself too, because Jalen does kind of fit into that category of being good, but not good enough. And it's really a conundrum, because the Eagles, moving forward, they're going to be decent, they're going to be competitive, but do they want to be forever that team that finishes 9-8 or 8-9 every year, and that gets knocked out in the first round of the playoffs? They need someone dynamic to push them over the top, and obviously that starts with the quarterback.
Yeah, it is an interesting contradiction, Joe, because, Howie has spoken most recently, talked with Dave Spadaro, and he used that sort of language that, he wasn't talking about Jalen or Deshaun specifically, but he was just talking in generalities and said, well, if you want to be like what they were last year and win 9 games, go to the playoffs, overachieve from their perspective, at least a little bit, you can do that, but you got to swing for the fences when it comes to personnel. If you want to, and I believe he used if you want the confetti coming down on your head, in other words, win the Super Bowl. So it has been this interesting sort of disconnect when they talk about Jalen Hurts and they say, well, we got to build around Jalen Hurts. And you and I have been around this league as much as, as long as we have, and you understand, don't listen to them, watch what they do. I've always thought the Eagles want to upgrade at quarterback.
Yeah.
I just don't think they have the path to upgrade at quarterback. So I think they've been very savvy to, publicly give those votes of confidence to Jalen Hurts. But I want to ask this because I want to bring Carson back into it and all the, I don't think they have to worry about it this time. Before they had to worry about it. Could you imagine? It didn't even happen, but Carson thought it happened. In other words, they gave him $128 million. We know, funny money, but significant money, largest contract in franchise history. At the time, NFL history. Obviously, that keeps going up and up and up and up. And he still was upset that the Eagles drafted a kid in the second round that all they wanted was a cheap backup quarterback because they had to pay the starter so much.
Mm-hmm.
In this particular case, though, Jalen, you can go do whatever you want. Try to get Deshaun Watson, try to get Russell Wilson, try to get pie in the sky, even try to go get Aaron Rodgers, which was never going to happen. It's not going to affect Jalen Hurts, which is a nice position to be in.
Yeah, it's a beautiful position to be in, and that's just it. If the roles were reversed a few years back now with Jalen Hurts and Carson Wentz, Jalen would have said, I'm gonna continue fighting for my job. I don't care who you drafted in the second round. I'm gonna continue to turn around and push, and that's the difference between the two guys. That's regrettably that's why Carson Wentz is with his third team in 3 years. That's why the Eagles, if you think about it, the Eagles made the playoffs, and the Carson Wentz Indianapolis Colts didn't.
Pretty amazing. Yeah, pretty amazing.
I didn't pick the Colts to make the playoffs, so I can honestly say I was not surprised.
You thought they were going to make them, though. Tell the truth, Jody. At the end of the season, when they just needed one win, and one of those two games was against Jack. Yeah, but it was the final two games.
Yeah,
and one of the final two games was Jacksonville. Mm-hmm. I mean, I said, well, they're going to beat Jacksonville at the bare minimum. That was an amazing collapse, and one of the reasons why Carson's not there. Let's be honest.
Before the season started, I did not have the Indianapolis Colts making the playoffs, and when they did not make the playoffs,
so you're not going to admit you at least were wavering when you saw.
Here's what I'm admitting to. I told you so. They weren't making the playoffs. They didn't make the playoffs.
Jody will never admit anything. God bless you.
Well,
you were wavering. I know it.
Except for the fact I didn't. Other than that, you're right. I wavered. Oh, but I didn't. All right, let's not now waver on Howie Roseman since he got his contract extension. My wavering is, although you're not wavering, good for you, Santoliquito. You're clinging to Deshaun Watson still coming here. I'm kind of
possibly.
Mac.
I'm saying that he's going to be. The Eagles are still players in this.
I think that ship has sailed. I'm with J Mac on this. I just want to know why the hell it has come to where we are. We don't have all the answers yet, and I want the answers. Not that I'm going to scream bloody murder that they didn't get it done. Just I want to know why. Is Howie Roseman being aggressive with the other positions? If you are at least onto something that they're still in the mix and they're still trying to get a meeting and they're still trying to get someone to talk Deshaun Watson into putting their name on the list. In the meantime, this Eagles team still has holes. They have this draft capital that they're going to be able to use however they choose to use it. But free agency is clicked off another day on the calendar and they still have holes. Is Howie Roseman dropping the ball here, in your opinion?
If he's still waiting and putting all of his so-called apples in that one basket. Now, John, I help me out here. I don't know the exact sum, but it's a very large sum that they have to play with now, don't they? And that's also in the back of my mind thinking they're going to make a play with Deshaun Watson. There is how much they have quite a bit to play with.
Well, comparatively speaking, they started the process. I think they were 6th in the NFC. So compared to where they were, they have a lot of space. Obviously, coming off the Carson dead money issue last year was a really different perspective, but they don't have a ton of money. They don't have Jacksonville Jets money. So I think, for instance, if they were to pull off the miracle and be able to acquire Deshaun Watson, they'd have to do some different things. I mean, they would have to tweak some things. They would have to make some other moves to make Deshaun fit because of his large financial outlay. So right now, I'm just looking at it. So when you factor in over the cap's got him at 15.6 as cap space right now. So, they can do what they want basically. But they don't have that Jacksonville money that they can just give Christian Kirk and pay him like he's the greatest receiver that ever lived.
Like I said, it's still. I'm not gonna waver off of the move that I still think they're players in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes, and also doubling down on this, if you want to say, they are also well equipped. I have to throw this up. They're well equipped to deal with the deluge of controversy that they would have to deal with in acquiring Deshaun Watson. Again,
we haven't even talked about that. I'm glad you brought that up.
Going back to the Vic situation, and remember how they handled that. So this is something here that the Eagles are equipped to deal with both on the field. They got the 3 first-round draft picks. They settled at least some edge rushing answers with Hassan Riddick. Plus, on top of that, this is a team that has already been through the deluge of serious criticism. I have friends, I have relatives. I'm sure you guys have friends and relatives that turned around and jumped off when they turned around and they made the Vic signing. So this is a team that's equipped to deal with. I'm not saying that they dealt with it well, but at least I'm saying they're willing to deal with it, and the infrastructure is there where they have dealt with it, a major situation like this in the past. I'm sure it's going to, if it happens, and I'm not saying it is 100% going to happen. I'm not saying it's 50%. That it's going to happen that the Eagles get Deshaun Watson. But I am saying that the Eagles do have things aligned to deal with it if, capital I, capital F, if it did happen.
All right, Joe, last question for me. It's funny, I wasn't going to ask you this, but since you just brought it up, it intrigues me. Friends, neighbors, whatever you just pulled into the Michael Vick situation, who you said got off the Eagle bandwagon. Did they get back on?
Yeah, quickly. It always happens. It always happens, Jody. You hit that right on the head, bro. Yeah, it always seems to happen. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. Another strike happens in baseball. I'll never watch baseball again. And by early June, mid-June, they're in front of a TV watching the Phillies.
Right.
Yeah, sports are
what I was trying to make. Yeah. You weather the storm. A couple of protests. You get some angry letters. The Inquirer and the op-ed page. Okay, fine. And then it's back to things as usual. So that's what you have to determine that first. Are you going to be able to weather that storm, and how big that storm's going to be? Your point of Jeff Lurie has been there, done that, I think is well taken. And that's why I'm still questioning. Why don't they have a meeting on the books with Deshaun Watson yet?
Well, maybe they've met him through other means. I don't know.
Zoom.
I don't know.
Zooming their life away with Deshaun Watson, you two? Yeah. I don't believe either one of you.
I'm the one who shut it down on social media. I put myself out there, so I don't think there's anything to it. I think the Eagles are out of the equation. I don't think they're going to acquire Deshaun Watson. If I'm wrong, I'll take the hits, and I will tip the cap right in front of Howard Roseman. I will do it right in front of him. I will say, man, you did a hell of a job on that, because everybody I talked to in this league said, nope, the Eagles haven't met with him. There's no scheduled meeting. I don't know how they're going to pull this off, but they're going to pull it off. So that's why I'm going in a different direction.
Real quick, while I have you two guys, let me throw this out to you two. I had the pleasure covering Hassan Riddick at Haddon Heights. Great kid, really good kid, really good young man.
Yeah.
Where does he fit? Where does he fit in the Eagles' defense?
Yeah, that's my concern.
In Gannon, we trust. You have to believe that the defensive coordinator has got a plan, got to pick. Now he's going to have to fit all the other 10 pieces around him. You can't make him the only sole determinant of what kind of defense you're going to play. but I'm a good enough Gannon guy to believe that he will get the most out of a talented player.
I'm not very proud of a lot of things on me physically because I'm chubby and bald, but the eyebrows tell a lot of things, and the eyebrows are going up and down. I don't know about that, Jody. I don't know. I need that trust needs to build.
You're a Gannon doubter too?
I am a Gannon doubter.
I'm supposed to love the guy. Now all of a sudden I'm a Gannon doubter.
Yeah, you are. I'm the only Gannon believer out of all of yous.
Yeah. It's not that I don't believe in him. I think he's going to in fact, I think he's going to utilize him correctly. So I would say I'm more of a Gannon believer than not. I just think it's a very unique player. I always use that term, Joe, unique players. There are certain players that you have to use correctly or they're not going to be effective. And I think the assumption is, and the best player I use is an offensive player. I use as the example. Jody knows this. Deebo Samuel out in San Francisco. You'll hear it all over the NFL. We got to get ourselves a Deebo Samuel type player. Well, you might get somebody with the same traits, but if you don't use them like Kyle uses them, doesn't matter. So if you don't use them correctly, you're not going to have the chance to find the next Deebo Samuel. Hassan Riddick's got a little bit of that from a defensive perspective because he's 6'1", he's 235, he's a tweener. You can't just put him on at defensive end. I think Jonathan's going to use him as a Sam linebacker, pass rusher. Just let him chase the quarterback. That's all I'm saying. No pass coverage. No chasing running backs on wheel routes. And I say that facetiously. Occasionally, you could drop him into a zone. You try to confuse the quarterback, but not for long periods of time. Not for significant portions of his playing time.
And finally, what do you guys feel will happen to Rodney Mcleod? I had the pleasure of speaking to him a couple of weeks ago. He wants to come back. Do you think the Eagles want him back?
It's interesting. I think they want to upgrade, but I think he's going to be back. I mean, they haven't been able to make an upgrade at safety. I think they're going to bring one of those two guys back, Rodney Mcleod and Anthony Harris. And I think, Rodney is such a pillar of the organization in the community. I think they're going to lean on that and bring it back for, a 1 year, very cost-effective deal. That would be my guess. And they'll probably sign a safety within the next 5 minutes.
Here's the reason why I think Rodney's going to be back. Rodney is in a comparable position to Jalen Hurts. They like him, but they would like to upgrade and get better. Well, what we're dealing with Jalen Hurts are the Deshaun Watsons, Russell Wilsons, top 5 type guys. Who's the top 5 safety they're going to get anyway to supplant Rodney Mcleod? He's not out there. Honey Badger's the only one left, and I've heard nothing about them talking to the Honey Badger. So if you're just talking about a middling upgrade, I don't think the Eagles will do that. I think they'll stick with Rodney Mcleod. Now, Rodney's not under contract. Jalen Hurts is, so it's not a perfect comparison. But if there was someone to jump in on that you would say that's not only an upgrade, that's a major upgrade, then I would say that Rodney was in trouble of being out of here. But because he's now in a group of individuals that might be better than him, but not that much better than him, if the price is right, I think Rodney's going to be back. So you can write that one down. He's Santoliquito on St. Patrick's Day, my good Irish buddy, is saying they're still in the bidding for Deshaun Watson. Don't believe that for a millisecond. And remember, on St. Patty's Day, Jody Mack said, I think Rodney Mcleod is coming back here. Another good Irishman, Mcleod. So we got Irishmen all over the place today here on St. Patrick's Day. Joe, good stuff. Thanks,
Joe. You going to the Maxwell Club tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm going this afternoon. I'm excited about it. John Taylor's coming in. We're honoring the great Ray Didinger. We're honoring the great Brian Dawkins. It's going to be an exciting Friday night.
And JAKIB Media, by the way, is going to produce.
Yes.
I did.
And you're talking to the knucklehead that did the script writing for them. The torment that I put Joe Kraus through.
There we go.
Very nice.
And Devin Caney will be there as well, so she'll pretty up the place for.
Is she the first actual Irish person that we've mentioned today? I don't know that we've had any true Irish people. Is Caney Irish? I think she is. We'll have to find out. We'll Joey, good stuff. Enjoy down at AC. Appreciate you hopping on board. Thanks.
Gotcha. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Joe.
Joe Santoliquito clinging to the Deshaun Watson possibility.
Yeah, man, Jody, I don't know where this is coming from. Joe's right with Barrett. I mean, Barrett's, very plugged in. Barrett knows everybody. Barrett's got a lot of credibility. As I mentioned, I got a text from another former player who thinks the Eagles. I just don't. I'd be amazed. I give Howie so much credit if he was able. This is like 3D chess level maneuvering. If this is real, that's all I'll say.
And Joe's reporter, yourself, you're a reporter. If a fan were saying this, I would understand, because the logic of it is laid out. Howie Roseman went to great lengths to acquire this draft capital, to get 3 first-round draft picks this year. And no one believes that he's actually going to use all 3 of the picks in the slots where they are to just upgrade with youth. Everyone thought that he was going to spin it all off, or at least a big part of it off, to get a player who could step in and help the Eagles next year. And that player, of course, was going to be a quarterback more than anything else. So if you don't believe how he's going to keep all 3 picks and use them, if you believe that he's going to trade them for a quarterback, and neither one of those 2 things are happening, well, then what the hell? Where are we at? They're not going to use the picks. No, Howie would never use 3 picks. Not in 1 year. They're going to get now they're not getting a quarterback because Russell Wilson.
Yeah, well, I've talked about the sense of urgency a lot, Jody. If you're going to do it, the problem is you don't have the draft class. So to me, the sense of urgency has always been there to go get the quarterback this offseason. Problem is the path isn't there. That's the only problem. The Eagles wanted to get better. The Eagles hope to get better. The Eagles want a top 5 quarterback. I just don't think the path is there. And I think we can officially shut it down. Other people's obviously disagree. I see Brandon has popped on. So let's get to a break and get him on a little bit early. We got Bleeding Green Nation Day. We got Joe Santoliquito. We got Brandon Lee Gouton, BLG. More Deshaun Watson, Jody Mack.
Well, will we get the answer from BLG as to why the Eagles didn't get that? All I want to know is the why. I'm not going to debate whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent. I just want to know why they didn't get a meeting. We'll ask BLG next. Brandon Lee Gouton's going to hop aboard. Got plenty to do here on Birds 365. Please stay.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass. Free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that. Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. 1 free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today, and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
You got your Mag guys here on Birds 365. McMullen and McDonald. We are joined by another good Irishman. Or so I hope. It's St. Patty's Day. We're making everybody honorary Irish, including Brandon Lee Gouton. How much Irish you got in you, BLG?
Really good question, Jody. So I'm like half Polish. That's the main half for me. And then the other half is like English, Irish mix. I don't know exactly.
You'll throw it in. Irish is close enough. There we go.
If you got any percentage, you're all Irish today.
Yeah, all Irish. If you got 1%, you're all Irish today. You got a green shirt on, BLG.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah. So we can't do that. We got green screens, so we can't even celebrate St. Patrick's Day. But enough of that nonsense. Let's get to the real news. Where do you want to start? Deshaun Watson or Howie Roseman? And both, because let's face it, they mix in together. Howie gets the 3-year contract extension. Jimmy Kempski, hat tip to him, who does a great podcast with you, getting the scoop. And the alignment is complete. Both Nick Sirianne, Howie Roseman are under contract through 2025. It's interesting, BLG, because I think Howie's a good general manager. I get killed for this all the time. But it is weird to be able to hire 3 coaches in this league. So I get both sides of the fence. And then I'll bring in the Deshaun Watson part and say, there are some people who believe the Eagles are still in on this. I'm not one of them. I don't know where you are. But if they are in on this, this is one of the great GM jobs of all time. The subterfuge on this is brilliant. So where's the disconnect of people that Howie's not good, but Howie's still in the mix for Deshaun Watson?
Well, I think when you evaluate Howie Roseman, I think it's a nuanced kind of thing. I think there's reasonable it's reasonable for people to have mixed feelings on him. I think you can point out, obviously, the Super Bowl. You can say playoffs in the last 4 out of the 5 years. You can look at the maneuvering that he's done. And I've always maintained that Howie's been really good. One of the best DMs when it comes to understanding value and navigating trades. You look at the Carson Wentz deal, just as an example. But I mean, when we're sitting here, we're also talking about a GM with 4 playoff wins in 11 years. And you're also looking at what the Eagles have done more recently. We all like to talk about how the NFL is that kind of league. The Eagles rank 18th in point differential and 19th in winning percentage since winning the Super Bowl. They are 19 and 29 in games outside of the worst division in the league, or at least one of them, the NFC East, since winning the Super Bowl. So I think there's some reason to question, just how good Howie Roseman has been. I don't think he's been a disaster necessarily. I also don't think he's been amazing. And I also think that the good work he's done last year was in part had to be done because he tore down the team that was the Super Bowl contender and not so intentionally. So I think it's kind of a nuanced thing there. And on the Deshaun Watson part, John, I do think there is some truth to the Eagles really being wanting to play this behind the scenes. I don't think that's the only reason we haven't heard about more buzz about, in terms of the Panthers and the Browns and the Falcons and the Saints meeting with Deshaun Watson. Obviously, there's been reporting out there that Deshaun Watson doesn't want to play in Philly, which is extremely relevant when he has a no trade clause. So, but my read on it, just my thought on it, is that you look at how the Browns have kind of gone with Baker Mayfield and him feeling alienated with the Cleveland's interest in Deshaun Watson, and I don't think the Eagles want to be in that boat. I think they're playing things much closer to the vest.
Fair enough. So you're saying, although John has said this, I've said this, we'll see if you're willing to say it, that's one of the major pluses of Jalen Hurts. We know what happened here in Philadelphia with Carson Wentz. Doug Peterson eventually said, listen, you're playing like the worst quarterback in the league. I'm going to give this kid a shot here. And Carson Wentz lost his mind. And I don't know that he's recaptured it since. We all believe that if Jalen Hurts has competition or that something is out there in the media or people are speculating on, that he'll handle it because he's a grounded, driven guy who's not going to let some other people's moves that he can't control get inside his head. Are you saying that the Eagles are keeping this under wraps just because they don't want to go down the Carson Wentz road again? They got to realize that Jalen Hurts isn't Carson Wentz in his ability to handle something happening around him, don't they?
Yeah, I think it's more than that. I mean, I think it's not necessarily that they think he can't handle it, but still, you don't want to have it maybe be as brazen, again, as the Browns are. And also just because it potentially hurts your leverage with Jalen Hurts if you want to deal him in the future, making him not look so entrenched as he is. So I think there's multiple reasons why they would do that. Also, again, I do think it's the case that, the Eagles aren't as strong of a contender as those other teams. There's obviously that part of it too. So multiple reasons, I would say.
Well, so can we extend that to free agency then, Brandon, and the fact that some people are looking and seeing safeties come off the board, wide receivers come off the board, and say, all right, what's going on here? Are the Eagles soft pedaling this, slow pedaling this because of Deshaun Watson? In other words, not making those other splashes outside of Hassan Riddick by going for big name free agents. It's very early in the process, but you know how fans are. They want everybody immediately. And you do have to start getting into the second and third layers. And by the way, that's where some of the value is in free agency. But nonetheless, there's some big names out there, and the Eagles could have been were involved from what I heard with Christian Kirk and to an extent Marcus Williams, but didn't get it done. Is that partially because they have one eye on Deshaun Watson, and that would be a significant addition to the salary cap?
I do think it's a little curious, that they haven't been more active than they've been. You look at the Eagles' history, except for last year, really, when they couldn't do much with the cap situation that they had. They're a little bit more active than this. That being said, I kind of did think they only had really one big splash in them, and I think that was Hassan Riddick. And then everything else was kind of going to be waiting out the market. I think that's the process they're in right now when you just look at the receiver situation with obviously Christian Kirk's insane $18 million a year deal.
And by the way, that's a good move. You don't give Christian Kirk that money. Yeah.
And even I think you look at a guy like DJ Shark who got like 10 million up max value of 12 in Detroit.
Up to 12. Yeah.
That's a lot for a guy who only played in 4 games last year. I think the receiver market as a whole is just kind of out of control. And I think when you look at how the Eagles play offense, at least how they did last year, they were the lowest passing volume offense in the league.
Yeah.
And I don't know that you're looking to spend those kind of major resources when you have a limited amount on that position, when you figure they're probably going to be running the ball a lot again next year.
But it all interconnects, Brandon, because if you get a different quarterback, that volume's going to change. Yeah,
that part is true.
And how difficult, not just for the Eagles, but the 4 teams that we know are really involved, and that's the Saints, as you mentioned, the Falcons, the Panthers, the Browns. How difficult it is for these teams to sort of wait, because everything changes if you get Deshaun Watson.
Well, that's the rub, right? It's like that's the risk is worth it in that sense, because if you either have a quarterback or you don't, and a team like Carolina or really New Orleans, who kind of just don't really have much to really be excited about that. I mean, it's just worth it because, okay, so what if you strike out? Then you're kind of in the same spot anyway. It's not like, oh, we missed out on this great free agent wide receiver or whatever because we're trying to get Deshaun Watson. Like, okay, that guy's not going to probably move the needle too much anyway. So it's all about the quarterback. That's at least where always my head has been. The Eagles, I think, much more relevant. Who cares what I think? That's where their head has always been. And that's why I still think we're seeing rumors of them connected to him because they really value that position. And as you were saying before I hopped on here, Jody, you're talking about, those 3 first-round picks and John saying like the path hasn't been there for them. That doesn't mean they're going to stop trying until Deshaun Watson is officially on a new team.
All right, since we're discounting and or cutting Eagles some slack that they haven't gotten any upgrades at the wide receiver position yet because they're not a volume throwing team. Okay, that certainly was true last year, and if we're speculating it's going to be true again next year, who's going to run the ball for the Eagles? They decided not to tender Boston Scott, which I kind of thought was a mistake. We'll see how it plays out. If they get him back at a slightly reduced from the 2.4 tender, good for them. But Jordan Howard not under contract either. They have all of 2 running backs under contract as of right now. Who's going to be running the football for this run-dominant and heavy team in 2022?
I do think it's possible that Boston Scott comes back. If you look at like 2.4 million doesn't seem like a lot relative maybe to some other contracts, but that's like top 30 running back money. And I don't know that you're giving top 30 running back money to a backup in Boston Scott. So I can't really fault them for that. I know Boston Scott is a nice player, but I think
right. But here, let me just
Sure.
hop in here. Christian Kirk, who we've been talking about extensively here, was like what, the 127th paid wide receiver this past year. Oh, shoot, now he's in the top 3. How did that happen? Guys move up all the time. When you become available and you hit free agency, your number tends to go up. So if 2.4 million is Boston Scott's number, he's one of those who can upgrade his number. Once you hit free agency, everybody, almost everybody, unless you're dropping off the table, everybody's number goes up. I don't think that's an accurate portrayal of what Boston Scott should be. As no one's saying he's a top 30 back, but when you're free and you have the availability, and Eagles made him more free by letting him go complete free agent, I don't think it's outrageous to say you can get that kind of money on the open market.
Well, I wouldn't be looking to the Christian Kirk contract to justify anything, to be clear. But
you understand the point I was trying to make.
Yeah,
when you become a free agent,
it's all about contracts are about timing and circumstance.
Right.
But BLG's right. Look, if Boston Scott can get more than 2.43 million, God bless them. Godspeed. Okay. My indication is but I think I forget the number. You might know, Brandon. There weren't a lot of restricted free agents tendered this year because the tenders were pretty high, pretty significant. I think it was 30 something. It was really a low number that got tendered overall. Obviously, the Eagles did it with Nate Herbig, didn't do it with Alex Singleton, Boston, and Greg Ward. They were able to bring Greg back at presumably less money. If Boston gets more than 2.43 million, he's not coming back. I mean, the Eagles clearly, by not tendering, it's not that they don't want the player. They just, they want to value him. You talked about Howie Roseman in valuation. That's where you roll the dice and say, well, nobody's going to pay him like a starting running back, and we can probably get him back at less money. Is that the strategy you think is going on with Boston Scott?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think, again, that's where something I think Howie Roseman is really good at, not only in trades, but like on the free agent market, having like a sense, having the relationships he does. I think he has a pulse of who might be interested or not in a player. And I think he's gauging the market in Boston Scott and saying, okay, this guy isn't going to have an insane market. And maybe, like you said, John, and like one team comes in and
the Giants, maybe they go, hey, we'll give him 2.5 million. Stop scoring touchdowns against us.
Yeah, exactly. And again, if they do that, then you kind of just have to be like, okay, well, all right, good luck, Boston. That's a good payday for you. That's not really something that made a ton of sense for us at that point. But look, getting back to Jody's original question, you still have Miles Sanders. Kenneth Gainwell needs to take a bigger step in year 2 in terms of his development, and also the Eagles giving him more opportunities. I think they need to trust him a little more. And if Boston Scott isn't back, there would obviously be some more opportunity for him in that regard. So, I still think they have enough there. They'll probably draft a running back on day 3 at the latest, or sign someone undrafted free agency. Maybe there's a bargain guy that ends up being out there on the free agent market for a while. The Eagles have kind of done that in the past, whether it was bring back Jordan Howard last year or some other players who maybe didn't work out. But like they added Cirianne Johnson at one point last offseason. They added Matt Jones in the past. Again, guys who didn't stick on the team. Yeah. But those kind of players will be out there.
Nice pull, Matt Jones, the Eagle Claw. Yeah. And then he fumbled all the time. Safety. Let's go to safety, BLG. Rodney's a free agent. Anthony Harris is free agent. They like Marcus Epps. They don't seem very high on Kayvon Wallace any longer. So, the thought is they're going to bring in a safety. Maybe they bring one of the guys back. I would think Rodney more than Anthony Harris at this point. But when you look at the names coming off the board, and, Marcus Williams probably a little bit too expensive, but when you start looking at the Jordan Whitehead, Scott, I thought that was a great deal for Joe Douglas and the Jets, Jody's Jets. So I don't know. Maybe there's something wrong with Jordan Whitehead. I don't have all the background, but it seemed like a player the Eagles might target. Justin Reed, a lot of people, including myself, were looking in that direction. Marcus May went. He and Denard Wilson have a history. Not much left except one guy who doesn't seem like a typical Eagles signing because of his age and a lot of tread off the tire and Tyrann Mathieu. But Jonathan Gannon talked about Harrison Smith a lot, that movable piece. Can he get that movable? That's like what Tyrann does. Any chance, any outside chance, we talk about subterfuge and no real obvious intentions of meeting with Deshaun Watson. Any chance behind the scenes the Eagles are going, let's go make a splash with that type of player?
Yeah, I think there's a chance. I think it would have to come down to the Honey Badger seeing, what's out there and kind of realizing that there isn't this strong market for him. There isn't a team out there that is an obvious, no doubt about it kind of contender that has interest in him. So I think it would take something like that. I think it would take time, and I think it would be a little bit later than sooner if that's what would happen. But yeah, they're in a tough spot at safety in terms of their options here, and it's not ideal because going into the free agent market, it looked like they were going to have a lot of options, and a lot of those options have come off the board, at least the enticing ones, certainly ones that would be a solution beyond the 2022 season, which I think is ideally the goal, not just getting another rental in here like the Eagles kind of did last year. I think you can re-sign Rodney McLeod. I think he'll be available for a reasonable rate, and he has expressed interest in coming back to Philly. So you have him. You have Marcus Epps. I think you need one more guy. I think you can go a 3 safety rotation there, which the Eagles were kind of doing later on in the season when I think Rodney was playing well too, not having him play the whole 400 snaps in a game, but kind of on a rotational basis. So maybe that's someone like Patrick Peterson, who obviously has played his career at cornerback, but there was speculation that he might move to safety for the Vikings last year. Didn't end up happening, but Patrick Peterson was on an NFL Network on Wednesday night and kind of mentioned the Eagles as a potential fit for him. So maybe you do something a little bit out of the box like that and move a cornerback to safety, but there aren't any slam dunk answers here.
I am still a fan of Patrick Peterson and Minnesota defense, which lost pieces last year, some of which were to the Eagles and didn't exactly quite fill the void here. Thanks, Mr. Wilson. But I'm still a Peterson guy, and I would prefer him as a cornerback than a safety. Will the Eagles look at Peterson and just say, hey, let's bring him in and let's play him in both positions, and whichever one he's better at, that's where we'll put him for the majority of the year? Is that a possibility for the Eagles?
All comes down to the price. I would think, so Patrick Peterson last year signed a 1-year, $8 million contract with the Vikings. I have a tough time seeing the Eagles spend big resources on the corner position, even though I know they have a hole there right now because Steve Nelson is a free agent. But I just don't think corner is a spot they're looking to, again, spend those kind of big resources at when they already have a lot of money tied up in Darius Slay. And you just look at the fact that I think the Eagles have been kind of able to get more out of less. Or not just the Eagles, but Jonathan Gannon, really, with his track record, especially playing the defense that they do and how soft they play. So I don't think they're looking to spend big, but if Patrick Peterson kind of comes at a bargain and you're plugging a hole for 1 year, I think it's in play. I don't think it's necessarily the most likely thing to happen, but I think it's an option that's out there.
All right, BLG, shame on me because we're almost 90 minutes into this program, and I haven't mentioned the significant hit the Eagles took on defense, tongue firmly planted in cheek. Hassan Riddick. They got one Hassan, They lost another spelled differently, by the way.
Mm.
That's going to be difficult. How many times have you misspelled Hassan and Reddick so far? First off.
Yeah, so in the first article that I did when they signed him, I had the 1D because I had JJ Reddick in the brain, so it already got
JJ.
up.
See, most people mess up Hassan. You messed up
Yeah.
the Reddick part of
Yeah.
it. Well, Hassan Riddick, though, I'm surprised he signed so quickly. He got a deal with San Francisco. Good team. Any concern about replacing Hassan Ridgway, the fourth man in that defensive tackle rotation?
Not at all. I think Hassan Ridgway
had to get it in.
Yeah, I know. Everyone's thinking about it. They might not want to admit it, but deep down, it's in the back of their minds. I don't think so. This is a guy who's been hurt a lot. I mean, obviously he stayed healthy last year, but prior to last season, I mean, he was constantly getting banged up. And I think at best, he's maxing out as like just a guy. I would say he was fine, not the worst option, but certainly I think the Eagles could look to get younger at that spot. And obviously, there's going to be some intriguing defensive linemen in the draft. And we'll see what happens with Fletcher Cox. They're going to need to add, whether Cox is back or not, they're going to need to add some more interior defensive line depth here. So it'll be interesting to see who they add.
On Bleeding Green Nation, you guys have a network of individuals doing stuff with other teams, and they show up on your site, you show up on their site. How's your Cowboy buddy doing? I would say the Cowboys have had one of the tougher off seasons so far this year. How's your counterpart down in Dallas doing with the moves that the Cowboys have made or haven't made?
Yeah, so I do a weekly podcast with my enemy/friend, RJ Ochoa, called the NFC's Mixtape, and we talk about all things in the best division, maybe the worst division, one of the divisions in the NFL, and he's not doing so good. He is very much frustrated, basically, with everything since the playoff game till now. I would say he's happy that the Cowboys ended up keeping DeMarcus Lawrence, but pretty bummed out that they had to give up Amari Cooper on the cheap. Pretty bummed out that they weren't able to seal the deal with Randy Gregory and instead see him go to the Broncos. I think across the board, it's hard to look at the Cowboys and say they're better than they were, at the end of the year. So I think they've only kind of gotten worse. I think at best they've stayed the same, and I don't really think that's the case. And I think for a team that relied so much on, Trayvon Diggs having this incredible season last year and Micah Parsons coming out of nowhere. And don't get me wrong, those are still talented players, but for them to have the amount of turnovers and sacks and all these impact plays that they did last season, I don't think that's going to be sustainable. Not to mention that throughout all of this, there's speculation that Mike McCarthy is just going to get replaced anyway, and that he's almost like a lame duck, and Sean Payton's going to come in. So the Cowboys, I think, are not in the best spot right now.
All right, Brandon, last one from me, and make sure you read BLG, one of my favorites, bleedinggreennation.com. How many podcasts you got now, by the way? How many co-hosts of the SB Nation NFL show? You got the podcast with Jimmy. You just mentioned your podcast with RJ. How many podcasts you got going now?
That's at least 3 a week, sometimes more. So that's a lot.
Yeah, and thanks for coming on this show as well with Jody Mack and John McMullen. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I'm going to pull a Jody on you here, BLG.
Hypothetical?
Not a hypothetical.
Oh,
more of a percentage.
I love a percentage.
I want a percentage because we have people going in all different directions. So I want a percentage to Howie Roseman's shocking the world like Jesse Ventura when he won the governorship of Minnesota. Shocking the world. Deshaun Watson's a Philadelphia Eagle. Percentage.
I'm going to say 18%.
18%. All right. All right. Yeah. I feel better.
John's at 0. I'm at like point 0.2. We're significantly lower than you and way the hell lower than Santoliquito. All right, here's my last question, BLG. Yesterday, Jonathan Gannon was down at Georgia for their pro day, and we know they've got at least 4, if not 5 guys who can go in the first round defensively. We know where the Eagles picks are up now. Will they be moving around? Will they be changing them? Since McMullen borrowed one of my usual questions, I'm going to borrow one of his. Eagles had 3 picks in the first round. Will they have nerve enough, stick-to-itiveness enough to use all 3 on defensive players? And is at least 1, if not 2, coming out of the University of Georgia?
Be a pretty good bet that they're going to take at least 1 Georgia player in this draft. I don't think they're going to make all 3 picks. And if they do, let's assume they do. We're operating within the framework where they do make all 3 picks. Even then, I still have my doubts that they're definitely all going to be defenders when you look at this team's history of evaluating and their valuation of offense and everything. But I mean, you look at Devontae Wyatt, who the Eagles are reportedly hosting on a pre-draft visit. It's their first known one that we know about so far. Their top 30 visits. That's obviously worth keeping an eye on. Jordan Davis just blew up the combine, and is not only his athleticism, but his size is insane. You're going to have to think hard about him, especially, again, if you are moving on from Fletcher Cox. Obviously, Nakobe Dean, I'll believe when they take a first-round linebacker when I see it. So a lot of options there. Jonathan Gannon, as you mentioned, at their pro day, again, significant, not shocking, but, significant to see him there. So I definitely think, good bet. If you want to place a bet, pretty decent chance that they take at least 1 Georgia defender.
Yeah, it's a pretty good bet for any team in the NFL, I think. Pretty good. It's pretty solid bet. Andy Waddle was there as well. Kevin Patullo at Georgia Pro Day. Everybody at Georgia Pro Day.
Who's the offensive player they want from Georgia?
Yeah, that's why they sent Kevin Patullo.
Ouch.
Yeah, BLG, have a green beer for me at some point. You got the green shirt on. You got to have a green beer too. Thanks for getting up with us.
Thanks, guys.
That is Brandon Lee Gouton of Bleeding Green Nation. I did not see the Patullo was down in Georgia. They got in.
No, they love that. They love Kevin Patullo. That wasn't a shot. But yeah, I mean, they're not. They're taking the.
Oh, I was taking it as a legit guy going down. I don't know that Georgia. Who would they be looking at as Georgia's Pickens?
I'm sure they have some athletes, but yeah, nobody high profile. But you're remember, it's more. Yeah, it's not just the first round, second round. They could be looking at somebody in the deeper in the draft. Who knows? But no surprise they had 3 high profile people at Georgia's pro day.
All right. Speaking of high profile, you threw it out there yesterday to the tail end of the show. I want to get you on a follow-up on it about the Eagles wanting to change the rules in the National Football League about not letting upper management, scouting, and the like player personnel go till after the draft, that they can be picked off and hired and leaves the team somewhat in a lurch. This is a pretty strong stance the Eagles are taking and would be a significant change in the National Football League. I want to ask you about that a little further. Coming back, Jody Mack here on Birds 365.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass. Free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that. Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. 1 free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
You got Johnny Mac and Jody Mac, quite appropriately, on a St. Patty's Day edition of Birds 365. We've asked each of our guests, and good to hear Brandon Lee Gowton's got at least some Irish in him. Santoliquito, I think, was a goose egg, but he fakes it well. Yours truly is about 87% Irish. My grandmother on my father's side was half Scottish, so I'm down to about 13% non-Irish, and the rest of me is pretty damn pure. How Irish are you, McMullen?
Very. There's some Scottish in there as well.
Same thing.
Yeah. I think the McMullen shield is actually Scottish, but I'm more Irish. But I've never done the actual numbers. Have you done that genealogy?
I have not, but I know what my father told me and how much his parents were, and my mother told me. So I'm ringing up at about 87%, which I'm quite proud of. And this is just another holiday as far as I'm concerned. Every day it's great to be Irish.
A holiday.
Exactly, for us Irishmen. Speaking of another good Irishman, Howie Roseman, I do want to follow up with him a little bit because I'm still not understanding the math that several outlets, Kempski first, but others have certainly reported as well, that it's a 3-year contract extension. He's under contract this year. It was supposed to be the final year of his previous contract. So he's added 3 more years. And everyone keeps saying, and that matches up with Nick Sirianne. Well, Sirianne supposedly signed a 4-year contract, which he's already done 1 year, which means his contract runs through 2024 and Howie's runs through 2025. So do they not match up? You said it earlier, and you're right.
No, they match up. They match up through 2025. So, and I don't even know. I don't remember when Nick was hired.
Sirianni's contract a 5-year contract to begin with?
Yeah. So I don't know if it was reported as well. I don't even remember, to tell you the truth. But I say all the time, like player contracts, coaching contracts, and GM contracts, and it's a bigger issue with GMs because there's, coaches usually get reported correctly. Head coaches. There's a biggest issue with assistant coaches. Like nobody knows when assistant coaches are coming due. There's no process for it. There's no, like the NFLPA has to file contracts. So, eventually they become public, essentially. Right. Not the case with coaches and general managers. So, they're both under contract through 2025. So I don't know what the original reporting, I don't remember, to be honest, was with Nick. But if it was that he was under contract through 2024, it was incorrect. They are both aligned through 2025. Lockstep, 100% confirmed.
Okay. Well, then here's what I would go back and question. And I know I'm being a pain in the rear end here, but did Nick Sirianne deserve a 5-year contract, having never coached before? Have not really even called plays in Indianapolis? Those kind of guys don't get 5-year deals.
You're probably right. I mean, especially with his, coming off the radar a little bit, at least. People knew who he was in the league because he was an offensive coordinator, but he wasn't on a lot of head coaching lists. He only got one interview. So maybe a little bit, but, a bunch of first-year coaches get 5-year deals. Matt Rule got more than that. I think it was 7. So if you go lower, you're kind of signaling a little bit like, we don't really believe in this guy. 5 is usually the standard for head coaches. But yeah, I mean, I've seen less, I've seen more. Like with Matt, it's probably a mistake to get Matt Rule, but they were, Carolina was fighting with the Giants at the time and probably felt they had to go to that level.
Right. So I'm going to ask you an unfair question here because I should know the answer just as well as you, and I don't. Bunch of guys got first-year contracts as new head coaches in the league this year. Did McDaniel get 5 down in Miami?
Oh, Mike, that I don't know. I can try to look up what the reporting is. I would
Did
think
O'Connell get 5 in Minnesota with the Vikings?
Again, I would have to look up
why do I think none of these guys got 5-year deals?
I would think Josh did. Josh probably got
McDaniel might have because he's a former NFL head coach, and
I didn't see because I still pay attention because I used to work there. I still pay attention to Minnesota. I didn't see a year. Right. I didn't see a year on. I don't think anybody reported how many years O'Connell got. So I mean, again, a lot of it is difficult to uncover.
Right.
But it wouldn't surprise me if he got 5 years because he's so young. It wouldn't surprise me if Mike McDaniel got 5 years because he's so young. That's what people are looking for. They're looking for the young coach who's going to be there forever if they turn out to be a good head coach. And most teams like to show the courage of their convictions. The last thing you want to do is, like, I don't think Doug got 5 years to start. But the Eagles didn't want him, no matter what they say now. Well, and it was proven, by the way. They didn't want him. They wanted Adam Gase. And they would have gave Adam Gase 5 years. They would have gave Adam Gase 5 years.
Unfortunately, that one I can attest to. The Jets gave Adam Gase 5 years, which was an MISTAKE.
Well, so did Miami. So did Miami. Oh, he was, people can pretend all they want and use revisionist history. He was the hot candidate of that particular year when the Eagles were in the mix. And then after, he had one good season in Miami, I remember. Even that, to get a second job with the Jets in the same division, people were snowed by that guy. They were snowed. It wasn't just the Jets.
Yeah, well, it's most painful. The only one where pain was actually inflicted was the Jets. So sorry if I feel a little salt rubbing in the wounds. Is part of the reason why Howie Roseman got this contract extension this time the fact that Brandon Brown and Ian Cunningham both took off to go to greener pastures, and the Eagles as an organization certainly signed on in the ongoing conversation for ever-changing rules in a National Football League that they want to rewrite the rules of when executives can lead their teams. Did the Eagles feel a little underwhelmed, under-supported at the executive position? And did Jeff Lurie say, I better get this Howie thing done because two of the guys who I could have elevated to replace Howie are now no longer Eagle executives? How do these things all tie together, if at all, in your opinion?
No, not as far. And by the way, the extension was reported today. And again, great job by Jimmy Kempsky to get it first. I believe it's been done for a long time, and certainly dating back before the combine, probably sometime in February. There was never any doubt. So when that burst, and I don't remember, you might remember when that burst came up and someone wrote about it, and I forget who it was, and put two and two together and said, Doug got an extension and Howie at the same time through 2022. Again, because they like to align the head coach and general manager. And I had said at the time, I said, well, they probably already done it, or they're on their way to align Nick up with Howie, because he wasn't going to fire him. So even though it was reported today, it was confirmed today, it wasn't done today. It's been in place for a little bit. And, this whole narrative that he had to get the quarterback right. He's got this offseason to prove himself was never going to happen. They were never going to have a lame duck GM. So the bigger conversation is, should he be the GM? And again, I see both sides. Brandon brought up some excellent points from the negative side, to be honest. The record since the Super Bowl has been essentially underwater. 32-team league, point differential, winning percentage underwater, less than 16. 3 coaches, that's not normally done. If you're a GM, you don't normally get to hire 3 different head coaches. So it is a little bit of a unique situation in Philadelphia. But I do think people all have to realize sports are cyclical. You asked a question about fans coming back with Joe Santoliquito, Michael Vick. There are a lot of fans upset. I'm an animal lover. I'm not an Eagles fan, but I'm an animal lover. And I don't like that. I gave Mike Vick every respect anybody else. That's not my job to make moral decisions. But ultimately, fans are going to come back. I used to have fights with Mike Gill on the air, my old partner in South Jersey, your old intern, about what the Sixers were doing during the process. One time we were doing a live show at Harris in Atlantic City, where the Maxwell Club will be, by the way, JAKIB Media, like, share, subscribe. People thought we were going to get, people who didn't know us thought we were going to get it in a fight on air, because we're going back and forth, not knowing we're friends. We just let it roll off our back. Similarly with me or you, when we get in arguments, I don't care. I just go on to the next thing. And I would say, look, the Sixers are alienating a lot of people. And he would say they're going to be back. Of course they're going to be back. Sports are cyclical. Nobody's arguing they're going to be back. We're talking about in the moment. In the moment, you're going to alienate some people if you go and sign somebody controversial. But they're always going to be back, especially if you're successful, especially if you're a win. It doesn't mean something's not wrong in the moment you do it, though. So there's kind of that disconnect. There's all these things. Howie's a very layered evaluation simply because he's been here for so long. And typically the shelf life for a general manager isn't that long. But I will say this, Jody, and I say it all the time, and you know it, you probably get sick of me saying it. Continuity is better than the alternative. I see some of these young GMs, and call it ageism, whatever, it's usually reverse, 35 years old, 40 years old. They make a lot of stinking mistakes. Jim Schwartz used to call them startup costs with players. When you're playing a young player who's never played before, they might have significant talent. They're going to make a lot of mistakes. When you ask them from a technical, from a fundamental standpoint, sometimes the athleticism is so good, you say, who cares? Like Micah Parsons, who cares? Just let him go. Same thing with GMs and coaches, though. And you saw it with Nick Sirianne. Nick Sirianne was the best head coach, was the best rookie head coach. He made a boatload of mistakes because it's the first time he ever did it. That's part of it. If you're going to hire a first-time head coach, you understand there's going to be a lot of growing pains, Same thing with a GM, same thing with a player. Howie knows what he's doing. You want to criticize the evaluations? Feel free, but he knows what he's doing.
And talking about young players, and oh, by the way, the Eagles are going to have a bunch next year because they do have 3 first-round draft picks, which we'll find out how they're going to use, and a full 3 days of drafting. So it comes down to believing in your coaching staff that they're going to cut into that learning curve. That if there is a baked-in learning curve for every young player in the National Football League, the better coaches get that number cut down.
Yeah.
And they get the player up to speed that much more quickly. The lesser coaching staffs just get, well, he's young. Well, he's young. Well, he's wet behind the ears. He's a little slow in developing. That's your job, is to cut into that time to develop. And we'll see if the Eagles are capable of doing so. They've got one guy who's a given here in town. That's your offensive line coach. The rest of the guys are still to be judged, the new coaching staff the Eagles have put together. All right, we got to take our final timeout. We'll come back. You know what McMullen and McDonald are going to do? They're going to put a big green bow on the show today.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass. Free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
John McMullen, Jody McDonald, your Mac Birds 365 guys. As John just said in the last segment, like, share, subscribe, JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Thank you very much. It's a holiday, right? You gotta do the right thing on a holiday. Like, share, and subscribe. Your two Irish buddies here on St. Patrick's Day on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. All right, J-Mac, here's what I want to do for our last couple of minutes today. 3 positions in which the Eagles still have, I'd go as far as to even say significant need: wide receiver, safety, cornerback. You got a couple of guys at these positions that they're probably not going to be in on because we expect that their price is a little expensive. Who knows? Maybe Howie Roseman. John has been praising Howie all day today about
you're going to get me in trouble, Jody.
The stealthness of Howie Roseman, and that if he can somehow get involved,
I don't believe it.
Radar.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I'm sorry.
Nor do I, but Howie has known to be stealth. It was more Santoliquito was saying, "Ooh, Howie, the darkness master who comes out of nowhere." I don't think he's.
What do you call him? The shadow something or other? I
forget what he called him too. I don't think he's getting in on Deshaun Watson. I don't think he's getting in on Allen Robinson. I don't think he's going to be able to land the Honey Badger. So if he gets any of those guys, both John and I will sit here and praise him to the hilt, because you don't think he's getting either Allen Robinson or the Honey Badger, do you?
No, not unless their prices come down, and the market just isn't there, and it turns into an Alshon Jeffrey type thing where he says, all right, I'll play on a 1-year deal, prove it, and get back to free agency quickly. So I would agree. Deshaun Elliott, safety, Baltimore, he's had some injury issues, very young. Maybe they roll the dice on him on a cost-effective deal. We've talked about Zach Pascal. Is it Pascal? Martin Frank pronounced it another way. I don't know, but maybe him, which
Pascal? I think
Pascal.
that's the way I've heard it pronounced. Zach Pascal.
Maybe Nick Sirianni, I can say that Nick Sirianni loves that kid. So,
all right, let me throw 3 guys at you,
all right,
who
shoot.
I will say have all peaked in their career. That there is no way next year with the Eagles, if the Eagles sign them, will they have their best year in their career. They probably reached their plateau. And while they may be coming down, they certainly haven't bottomed out. And if it's only a slight drop off, it could be considered an upgrade for the Eagles. Tell me if they have a chance at any of these 3 players, one at each of the 3 positions I mentioned. Since he got released the other day, I've been on the Jarvis Landry bandwagon. I still like the guy. He's, again, not a young guy, probably a 1-year contract, but that's what I think he's going to get around the league. But would the Eagles be willing to jump into at a certain number, like upwards of $8 to $10 million for a 1-year wide receiver deal for a guy like Jarvis Landry?
I think if it comes down to that number, yeah, I think they would be in on that. I think 1 year, I think that's a good contract, Jetty. I think if that's the market, I think they would certainly entertain it. And remember, you have the other end, though. Does Jarvis, who's used to getting the football a lot, want to play here in this offense? So it's kind of a two-way equation. But the way you laid it out, 1 year, 8-9 million, somewhere in that range. Yeah, that's exactly the type of contract that they would give a player.
Since Howie Roseman just got his 3-year contract extension, congratulations, Howie. Here's what you got to be able to do. You got to be able to sell. And even if it flies in the face of last year's stats, you have to be able to sell to a wide receiver. We have faith in Jalen Hurts. Nick Sirianni really wants to throw the football. Jeffrey Lurie really wants to throw the football. Yeah, last year we didn't throw the football much, but we get you, big guy. Oh, my God, are we going to throw the football? Well, that's what Howie Roseman, that's his job. That's what he just got a 3-year contract extension for, is to be able to sell ice to Eskimos. Get him done.
The assumption there is the other side is a bunch of dummies. The assumption there is, like, who else is in the equation? Okay, if a 4,500 yard pass, 4,000 yard passer, 45 is a lot, but if a 4,000 yard passer comes into the equation in another city, what do you think? They're dummies? Well, I mean, the whole selling ice to Eskimo cliche is you're taking advantage of.
How the hell was Jalen Hurts the 17th ranked quarterback in the league this past year? You and I have both quoted that number for Pro Football Focus. That means there's 15 other teams who have a shittier quarterback than Jalen Hurts. If he was number 17, how is he 17 if the Eagles never throw the football?
Because the attributes of Jalen Hurts are more than just throwing the football. And arguably his biggest attribute is not throwing the football. He's so effective with his movement skills. And give me these 2 real quick, but I want to say Aaron Wilson real quick. Saints are working hard to convince Deshaun Watson to waive his no-trade clause for them. Per league sources, decision is expected to ultimately come down to Saints versus Falcons. It's coming to a head, still no Eagles. So if he pops his head up at the very last minute and says, hey, welcome to Deshaun Watson to Philadelphia, Godspeed to Howie Roseman. And then, Jarvis Landry would come here immediately.
Any chance to do that. All right, quickly, the corner that I want to ask you about, he's kind of become a forgotten man. we're not that far removed when Stephon Gilmore was the best cornerback in the National Football League. Had a falling out in New England, ended up getting traded to Carolina, didn't do much there either, but he's back on the open market. You got any interest in Stephon Gilmore? And I don't even know what his number would be, because he did go from like maybe the best corner in football to a guy who's not even talked about all that much. You have interest in Stephon Gilmore, corner for the Eagles?
Boy, I would have interest, but I can't imagine he's not. And I know typically, if you're getting big money, you're going to get big money right away. I still think he's going to get big money. And I still think that the Eagles are not going to be in that conversation.
Okay.
I've heard 49ers. I've heard Raiders. I've heard even some Jody Mack Jets. I think he's going to be too expensive for the Eagles.
All right, fair enough. And the other guy I want to talk about, we talked about Boston Scott going to the Giants. That way he can't score touchdowns against them. I know he was hurt last year. He didn't have a good year when he played, and he missed more than half of the season. But I've always been a Jabril Peppers fan. And he's another one of those guys who isn't the perfect fit guy. Hell of an athlete, had certain attributes that you really like from your safety. Hell of a tackler and can get up the field as well, but not a great cover guy. If Jabril Peppers is healthy, should the Eagles be interested in him as a safety?
Well, how much do you believe in Epsy, my guy Epsy? I mean, Epsy is a strict, pure free safety. In other words, he's going to play single high. He's going to play cover two. He's a coverage guy, not a box safety. So from that standpoint, it fits, because then you would want the box safety to complement the coverage safety. So from that standpoint, I would see a fit, and that's a guy you probably get on a 1-year deal. So as things trickle down, he would make some sense, especially, and they like Marcus Epps. That's real. So if they're going to go, Marcus Epps is going to be one of our safeties, then you need that type of player. So I could see that fit from a schematic standpoint.
Couple of names you can keep an eye on for the next 22 hours. Because that's when we're back here. I don't know how many green beers McMullen's going to have today. I'm going to have at least one. I can guarantee you that. Happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody. We will be back in 22 hours. You good, McMullen? You going to make it to St. Patrick's Day?
Hassan Riddick, I don't know what time, but the Eagles are going to announce officially Hassan Riddick today. So
is he Zooming?
No, we got to go down there. Zoom. Okay. I don't know if you know, Jody, but COVID is over. So boom, done. We got to go.
If you say so. No more tests for you?
I didn't say so. Tape said so. It's over. It's done. It's declared over. What the NFL says goes.
Yeah, that's true. The
NFL. It's the CDC or the world. No, NFL. So
they do dictate a lot of things. All right, and I dictate. We'll be back here on Birds 365 in 2 and 2.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.